your moat isn't necessarily anymore about technology. Look at Anthropic and OpenAI and Gemini and DeepSeek and Qwen. They are neck and neck after having spent tens of billions of dollars. So your number one moat is going to be your ability to have a great distribution channel and to be able to have excellent customer experience so that they in turn can tell their folks, their friends, their families, coworkers about your product and why you're the best thing.
Joining me today is Yashar Ahmadpour, CEO of Impressive, from idea to business in seconds. Yashar, welcome. Thank you for being here. Tell us about yourself, and then we'll jump straight into how you got your first paying client.
Thank you so much. My name is Yashar and founder of Impressive. And the way that we got our first paying client is we put out a call out there. Actually, what we did is, long story short, is I actually started to conduct a lot of research. This was because we were trying to find product market fit. And then in that journey of trying to find product market fit to see if we need to make some changes, et cetera, which we did a lot, finally arrived to a point where it showed promise. And that's how we started getting our first paying clients on Impressive. And now it's growing, and it's an interesting story of how we arrived where we are today.
What was the outreach like, and how did the conversation go?
Yeah, so the outreach was, I posted on Bluebird and I said, I'm looking for product managers. I want to interview you. Here's what I'm thinking. And that's how they became intrigued. And then they started responding, and then they added other people to the fold. And that's how it got started. This is my fourth startup. It's not my first startups. I have been through quite a few ringers in my past. I've had quite a few failures in my past, both professionally as well as my own startups. And so it's not like this was in a state of vacuum. No, I'm not that lucky. I had to grind hard throughout my career to be able to understand, okay, where do I go? What's the watering hole? And in my case, it was a platform that I went to. And then from there, it was going to networking events here in Carlsbad, North County, or going up to San Francisco to events over there, or Los Angeles. People became intrigued because what we had built was a simple way for people to build agents. This was last year. Of course, now when you look at Anthropic, or you look at Codex, it's a little bit different. It's very simple to build agents. It's no longer something that is very cumbersome. The issue, however, is you're going to rack up a lot of token cost. As we see in some articles out there, companies are spending hundreds of millions of dollars just paying for token costs, which is a problem in of itself.
What did you charge with the first client, and how did you land on that number?
We landed on it like this. What should be the price that we set it on? We wanted to have a very simple introductory price. It was $19.99 a month, and then you had a $50 a month and $100 a month. And then, of course, from there, you do price adjustments, because the very first time you're setting something, you have to think about the following way. What are people paying currently for tools out there, whether it's ChatGPT, Claude Code, or Gemini? With Gemini, you get it with Google Suite, but how much are you paying that for a month? $20 seems to be the thing that most consumers are comfortable paying. And those that are powerful, like power users, they might pay $50 a month. And those that really want to take advantage of it, they may want to have a lot more capabilities. They'll pay $100 a month. And this was based on historical records that we've seen other companies do, but also what I had experienced myself in the past. And then I always like to empathize with my users or put myself in their shoes and see, what would I be willing to pay for this as an introductory price? Because A, I don't know them. B, I don't know if they can deliver. And C, is it going to be hogwash, or is it going to be something worth its salt? That's how we set the pricing. But the pricing as we work with enterprise customers and private equity firms today is very different than that pricing. And now it's completely bespoke pricing.
Since you've done this before, what would you compare when you were getting your first client for the very first time in your first endeavor, and comparing that same experience and feelings when you're doing it with this current endeavor after multiple ventures?
Yeah. The first time was back in 2005 or 2006. And I remember we got our first paying customers. It was called Videonary. You can think of it like Yelp, but instead of text, it was video. So people would put videos up of places that they visit. And the first time we had customers was really exciting, because we're like, oh, wow, we have a paying customer. And what was really fascinating was some of these customers push really, like, they evangelize this. They're like, we want to have an activities calendar for our restaurant or nightclub or whatever. Okay, what does that mean? It means we want to attract them and show them what's coming up. Okay, cool. So we added that. Then they were like, we want to be able to have loyalty coupons, et cetera. This was back in 2005, 2006. So we created a cell phone coupon we called a cell phone, trying to be clever at the time. And so that was a new thing that wasn't really there. And it was very exciting. And then we made it to the local news station. And on the day that it went, my co-founders and I were sitting in my living room, and we're like, okay, here's the segment. It came. And then soon after, our servers crashed. This was before AWS. Our server crashed, and we're panicking. We're like, holy cow, what are we supposed to do now? And then my co-founder was frantically trying to build it. And so yeah, both exciting, but also very dreadful in the sense of, is this the experience we want to convey to users? But in hindsight, it was actually not a bad thing. If I fast forward to today, I don't care about the first customer. And let me rephrase that. It's not that I don't care about the first customer. I absolutely care about every single customer. What I don't care about as a number is I have a paying customer that is paying money. And the answer that I have is, so what? Do you have two? Do you have three? Do you have four? Do you have five? Do you have 10? Do you have 20? Do you have 400? Do you have 500? Do you have 1,000? And so then it becomes less about the excitement of that one first customer and more about, is this a repetitive pattern that showcases that you've built something that people want to come back to time and time again? For me, the most important thing is always going to be, what is our stickiness? What percentage of people keep coming back? What's our retention rate? And so when we started out, our retention rate was roughly around 37, 38%, which was pretty high, especially straight out of the gateway. Now our retention rate hovers around 90 to 93%, which is really, really good. Now what we're working on is, how do we take these customers that are using our platform and turn them into enterprise customers? Because these are people that are using the agent capability building inside their existing organizations. Not everyone, but a good amount of them. And so this is what we're working on today.
And what do you think works consistently to get more clients, and what doesn't work?
You have to constantly reach out to the customers without making them feel that you're bugging them. Reaching out to customers isn't necessarily that you're emailing them or calling them, but it's that they're aware that you are aware of their progress. It could be something delightful experience. They sign up or they built an agent or the agent did something. How do you reach out to the customers? This is where you build the system that sends them a message like, hey, great, you've achieved such and such thing. It's an unlock. And this is where you have gamification in place, or as we like to follow, is Octalis' framework. That's number one. Number two, you have to be receptive for whether they call you, email you, or in some cases, and with some of our customers, they might call me directly or text me. I want to be available to them. I'll take their call. I'll take their text. I'll respond. It's giving that Four Seasons type of experience to them. And the best experience that I've ever had was a few years ago. My family and I, we lived down in Carlsbad, but for spring break, we took them to San Francisco. We checked in at this hotel. I think it was Palace Hotel in San Francisco. And from the moment we got there, the doorman was there and he held the door open. And then he came over to my ear and whispered, is it okay if I give the kids Ghirardelli chocolate? Because Ghirardelli chocolate is inside the building. I said, sure, absolutely. Give them chocolate. And the kids were beside them. They were tired, but they were happy. Wow, I get chocolate. We get in. They knew who I was. They greeted me by my name because they had the app that showed that I was showing up. They greeted me by name. Oh, hello, Ahmadpour family. Welcome. We're so happy to see all of you here. And that was the first part of the experience. And the second part of the experience was when we were in the swimming pool, which was a pretty neat place. And they saw my kids, they were playing, but they didn't really have toys. So a lady came over and said, is it okay if I bring the kids some pool toys? I said, sure. She brought that. And then she also brought a bag with snacks and goodies. And she said, is it okay if I get them some snacks and goodies with water and fruit and everything? I said, absolutely. Thank you. She brought that, brought the towels. And then when we wanted to go to Muir Woods, we inquired about what's the best way. They're like, well, you have these tours, etc. and so forth. They're like, the best way is you rent a car. It's going to be much more economically viable. Plus, you don't have to adhere to someone else's time schedule, etc. and so forth. Here's what you do. And they're like, you know what? Let us check you out for the car. This is a third-party company. It has nothing to do with the hotel. They went on to the website. They had my information. They signed up on my behalf, requested my permission to do so. They did all of the data entry. And then they said, okay, the vehicle is here and we have two child seats because the kids at the time needed a child seat and the other one a booster seat. None of that was necessary. We had not experienced that in a hotel before. This is my long way of saying that the best type of retention, the reason why retention is so critical is because it shows that you care, genuinely care for your customers, and your customers can feel it, whether it's in the digital realm or the physical realm. I think customer experience is paramount. And if you don't have that, you could have the best tech out there, much like Betamax was superior to VHS, but VHS ended up winning. Now, that might have been for other reasons, but that's what I wanted to impart here.
On the other side of the spectrum with chaos, you mentioned in the previous venture, your servers had crashed. What was your mindset to deal with such a difficult situation and to keep pushing forward? What was going through your mind to handle that?
Well, while my co-founders were panicking, I was more ecstatic more than anything because I looked at it from a numbers perspective. we had already done a lot of simulations of what happens if we get this much traffic. And what's the threshold where the servers are going to start crashing or they're not going to be able to handle more traffic? I'm thinking, ka-ching, more users, customers, more revenue. That's how I'm looking at it. Now, our CTO, of course, he wasn't looking at it from that perspective. He was like, crap, I didn't do this, or I didn't do it. It's like, relax, you got this. Let's just get up and focus on the win. This is going to be something that's repeated. We're going to take this video clip and we're going to put it on our website. Now we can claim we're on ABC News, even though it's a local news station. So I always, no matter what situation, I always have a tendency to look at the silver lining that life has to offer. I don't panic. I don't go into my shell and think, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? Instead of focusing on the problem, I focus on, okay, I know there's a problem. I've acknowledged it, but I'm going to focus on what's the solution or what's a path forward, because I cannot do anything about the problem in its current existence, but I can do something about finding a solution. So I focus on that.
Let's go back to the beginning where people can understand the start of the journey of Impressive. What made you walk away from whatever it was you were doing to build Impressive?
Things were moving too slow. And what I mean by that is the previous organization I was with, the people there are amazing. I loved it. I thought it was spectacular. But when I say things move too slow, there was this culture of resistance in part of the organization, which was things are good as they are. Why make changes if we don't have to? But they had to make changes because they were hemorrhaging customers. They were using a form factor in the user experience and the UI from 2016. And so they had to update it. They had to embrace the new things. And so this is why I came on board. The login experience and the sign up experience was very cumbersome. It was slow. I made improvements on it. We went from 7 steps down to 3 steps. I brought the notion that we have to use generative AI. We should be able to build proof of concepts in less than a week without involving engineering to be able to prove that there's a marketplace for it and do A/B testing. Now you can use Codex or Claude Code, and you don't even need engineering for a lot of things. So for me, it was, I started Impressive on the side, which was, I was working there, but then at nighttime I was working Impressive, because it wasn't that I was seeking out to build a new company. I was happy there, but I was doing this because I needed to solve my own problem. And then 6 months in, this requires my full attention and my co-founder's full attention. Is I went in full force mid last year. My co-founder actually went in full force February last year.
What did your first day look like working on this? And did you need any money to start, or could anyone start that from zero?
No, completely bootstrapped. With my previous startup, we have to actually raise money. Raising money is not a win, and yet it is considered a win, right? And what I mean by that is raising money is that someone took a bet on you and they're investing in you, which is great. But if you don't have product market fit and you don't have this repetitive pattern and you don't have the retention rate being high, then you are taking on a lot of risk of making sure that future investors don't want to invest in you because you raised money too early before you knew what you were doing. It could be that you raise money and now you end up losing most of the control and you could be ousted from the organization because you're not doing your job as a CEO. I don't like owing anyone anything unless I know them investing in me is a guaranteed return on investment. And when we started this out, I wasn't sure if that was going to be the case. And then by the time it got to late last year, the climate of fundraising started changing because now all of a sudden Anthropic is coming out with everything under the sun. And they are disrupting a lot of the startups that had already raised money. Even those that have raised $10, $20 million, they can't raise their next round because the investors are now leery that Anthropic will come out with a solution to it. And in some ways, it was a blessing in disguise that we did not raise. And then we decided when we wanted to raise, it didn't happen because it gave us the ability to say, you know what? If we had raised money, maybe we would have continued down the same exact path as when we set out to build Impressive. But as a result of not having raised that money, we had to really think out of the box. Do we have stakeholders that we have to adhere to and we have to stay on the same path, or can we experiment? And for the past 2 months, we started doing a lot of experimentation. And the genesis was about 6 months ago, where I started seeing late last year, there's a lot of token cost. Most organizations don't realize it at the time when I was thinking about this. They're not realizing that the token cost is going to drive them out of business. They're replacing employees with AI, and yet the AI is going to end up costing them more than a human that sits and does the work. That's number one. Number two, government contractors. Are they actually open and embracing these technologies? Is there IT staff? Because when you have the CIO or the IT person, they're resistant to embrace bleeding edge technology because they have to make sure that it's secure, that it's SOC 2 compliant, it's ISO 27001 compliant, et cetera, and so forth. Then I set out to think about how I would approach this if I were to rebuild from the ground up. And 2 months ago, that's when I started doing experimentation. And then I published a paper on it. One of our customers that's been using a platform reached out and said, I want that, which is basically a private AI that runs on prem. And what I mean by on prem, I mean on your laptop or on your desktop. It never leaves that machine. All the computation, all of the reasoning occurs on that machine. Now, all of a sudden, you're completely secure. There's no latency. If you're going to retrieve something, it's instant and it doesn't hallucinate. And the reason for it is because you have built parameters that it can only reach into your RAG file system. And the information that it retrieves is going to be your information. It's not making new information up. Now, where it falls short is if you're going to conduct competitive analysis, if you're going to do research, if you are going to look up latest news. For that, you're going to need cloud AI. And so we built the ability to, if somebody wants that, they can simply take the API from Gemini, OpenAI, or Anthropic, or DeepSeek, or someone else, embed it in there. And then when it requires that, it can go and retrieve that information and complete the whole thing. But as it stands, this new version that we built runs completely local on your machine. And that's how we adjusted it to grow this way.
At what point did you think this was becoming a business to go all in?
When I started seeing a private equity fund was using us an average of 7.5 hours a day. This was December last year. We reached out to that PE fund. We interviewed them. We wanted to understand how they were using it and why they were using it so much. And so our forte has become, we primarily work with private equity funds because of that. We're seeing that private equity funds are very attracted to what we're building. One of the PE funds that reached out is because they've been with us from day one using us, but then when they saw the published paper, like, we want this. And we know that other PE funds are also going to fall in line because we're addressing their biggest concern. They have their own proprietary secret sauce in how they conduct business. And they want AI, but they don't want that secret to leave their premises. Well, that's check one. Check two, they don't want to have any sort of latency. That's check two. Check mark number three is that they hate when AI hallucinates. Those are the biggest three things that they needed solved. And now we've solved it. And that's why they come to us.
If you had to start Impressive over from zero today, what would you do in the first 7 days knowing what you do now?
I would go all in what we're doing today, which is build a localized AI on-prem. And specifically, we are focused on Mac machines right now. We're going to go to PCs later, but the reason for Mac machines is because the M processor lends itself really well for AI architectures. We embedded natively in there. We have built native solutions for it. These are Mac apps, and it just flies. And so that's why we're very pleased with this. If I had to redo it, I would go back a year and I would say, don't build a web app, just have a website. Tell people what it is. You can have a video, whatever, but focus on going all in on native apps, whether it's Mac or PC. That's what I would do. But the reality is also open source solutions for AI, for LLMs, were not that great last year, like 12 months ago. 12 months ago, the models were too big. You couldn't fit it onto a machine. The reasoning factor, if they were smaller, were pretty poor. You can take a look at Llama. It was okay. But something happened earlier this year, and that something was OpenClaw. OpenClaw came out and took the world by storm. And what they proved is people really love to have control and have this innate ability of having things on their machine. But what OpenClaw did poorly is that there was no security. It went out and did things without any safety guards in place. It's not built for that. It's something that you build. It's okay, I'm going to do this. And you could run into a lot of issues there. But timing, even if I wanted to do what I'm doing today a year ago, the timing wasn't right. But I think the timing is right now.
Any final thoughts you want to leave for people still trying to get their first client?
You have to come out of your shell if you're someone who doesn't do well in communicating with people, whether it's networking or going to in-person events. I have two kids, and my daughter has now been doing a lemonade stand. I think this will be the third summer that she's going to be doing it. First year that she did it, she was very shy about it. But then as she progressed, she was like, I want to have my Bluetooth speaker there. And I asked her why. And she said, so that I can attract more people because they'll hear the music. And then she followed that up by saying, can you post on the community board to let all of our neighbors know that we're here? And then the third thing that she did is she employed one of the neighbor's kids and told him, if you go and get customers, for every new customers that you bring, I'll give you a cup of lemonade for free. And so this is my long-winded way of saying, if you haven't done a lemonade stand or sold anything or tried to convince people that you've made the best thing since sliced bread, go and do it. Even something as mundane as selling lemonade, because that experience is going to be what sets your foundation for how well you're going to do. And looking now in mid 2026, your moat isn't necessarily anymore about technology. Look at Anthropic and OpenAI and Gemini and DeepSeek and Quen. They are neck and neck after having spent tens of billions of dollars. So your number one moat is going to be your ability to have a great distribution channel and to be able to have excellent customer experience so that they in turn can tell their folks, their friends, their families, coworkers about your product and why you're the best thing.
Where can people find Impressive?
They can go to impressive.dev. I would encourage them to actually email it. They can email me directly, y@impressive.dev if they choose to, because I'd love for them to take this new version for a spin. We can give them access where they can use it for 7 days. This is a basic version, but if they want to make it bespoke to themselves, we're there to build it for them.
Links to details to Impressive are in the description below. Yashar, I had a great time speaking with you. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, Yasser. I really appreciate your time.